Atlantic Division down. What about the Metropolitan Division? It's very likely if the Sabres are competing for a playoff spot, it's for a wild card position, which means competing with the Metro. Who got better? Who got worse this offseason? That's coming up on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
Your Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody, and welcome into this Friday edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast, and thanks for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can watch the show on YouTube. Be sure to hit the like and subscribe button. You also, if you would like to get involved with the show today, we'll do a little of that with a mailbag segment of today's show. You can ask a question or give a comment by heading over to our text club. Join subtext.com/LockedOnSabres is the place to sign up. From there, it just looks like a group chat. It just looks like a text back and forth more so. So be sure to hit us up there. Today's episode of Locked On Sabres is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Football season right around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today. Start planning your futures bets now. Sneaky Joe DiBiase here, heading into the weekend and only a couple of weeks away from Buffalo Sabres training camp. We also are nearing the Prospects Challenge, which we'll get in the month of September for the Buffalo Sabres. So we will start seeing players returning to the ice in the next month. And as we wrap up August here, just trying to arm you with as much information that you need, expectations, what you should expect going into the 25-26 NHL season, and what the landscape looks like around the Buffalo Sabres. We know their offseason moves. We've done every team in the Atlantic Division, which, you know, are the teams the Sabres are going to play the most. And they will be teams the Sabres will be competing with for wild card position. But if you don't think the Sabres are grabbing a top 3 spot in the Atlantic, and I don't really see how you could believe that they are going to do that at this point in time, then you're fighting for one of 2 wildcard spots in the Eastern Conference. And if you're going for wildcard, then the Sabres competition will not just be within their own division, it will be with Washington and New Jersey and Columbus and both New York teams, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. All of those teams will be thrown in the mix as well. Not going to do a whole show on each one of those teams. We'll do the whole division today, especially since a lot of teams in this division I don't really expect to be in the mix. And I'll touch upon those teams a little bit briefly. At the top, I do not expect the Carolina Hurricanes to be a team the Sabres are fighting for positioning with this year. Carolina is going to be top of the division or second in the division, but it's at least going to be a top 3 spot. And they already have been one of the most consistently good regular season teams in the NHL for 5+ years now. And they made one of the biggest moves of the offseason, going out and being the team that decided to pay Nikolai Ehlers, and they trade for Keandre Miller on top of that. So I like their offseason. They added talent. They already were really good. Their job is, like, their sights are set on something different. They are the Bills of the NHL, and their Kansas City Chiefs at the moment are the Florida Panthers. They just do not look like they can get through that Panthers team, despite the fact that they kind of have an easy time getting through their own division once the postseason shows up. So not really thinking about Carolina all that often. And maybe I'm wrong on these 2 teams, but I expect the 2 teams that sat at the bottom of the Metro last year to be at the bottom of the Metro again. One of those teams being the Philadelphia Flyers, who were pretty bad last year. In fact, they did finish dead last in the Eastern Conference with 76 points. The team that finished in fourth last, I guess, is Pittsburgh, who was 1 point better than the Buffalo Sabres, and they are just getting older. Evgeny Malkin going into his final year with the Penguins, and Letang being at an age that he is at, and that team is as thin as it has ever been. I just do not see Pittsburgh getting leaps and bounds better. They might trade Brian Russ still before the start of the season. There's really, they brought in Anthony Mantha this summer. Like, there's really nothing Pittsburgh did that makes me want to go all in on them as a wild card team. I don't think there's any shot. And I don't think there's any shot that Philadelphia does it. They added Trevor Zegras. But I'm not betting that Trevor Zegras is going to give them a giant bump as well. So that's where I'm at. Philly, not yet. And Pittsburgh, like Michkov is the one we're waiting for. Matvei Michkov, he's becoming a star already. He's only been in the league for 1 year. But I don't think he's good enough in year 2 to lift them that high. So no Philly for me, no Pittsburgh for me, no Carolina for me for a different reason. The teams really, I think, that are worth focusing on are mostly Washington, New Jersey, Columbus, the New York Rangers, and the New York Islanders. Those are, in my opinion, the 5 teams that are going to be fighting for wildcard positioning or top 3. And just to go through a little bit of each of them and what they were last year. Last year, Washington wins the division with 111 points, a 51-22-9 record, the best record in the Eastern Conference. Nobody saw that coming. I certainly did not. Was it a little bit lucky? In some parts. They scored on a crazy high percentage of their scoring chances, and that includes, in a big way, Alex Ovechkin. Ovechkin's awesome, best finisher in the league, but he might be going into his last year. The adrenaline of that goals chase might have played into them having such a good year. Also, this year might be Ovechkin's last year. We don't really know where that stands. There was a email sent out to Capitals season ticket holders that said that this would be his last year. They came out and said that shouldn't have been in there. There's been no decision on that front, but you're left to speculate that maybe this is Ovi's last year. And if it is Ovi's last year, well, maybe that gives them another adrenaline shot to kind of go out on top with Ovechkin. Because otherwise, I don't hate their lineup. It's it's fine. Dylan Strome's become a nice player. I thought he was going to be one of the biggest busts in NHL draft history. I wanted zero part of him 10 years ago becoming a Buffalo Sabre. And he definitely isn't. He does definitely not lived up to being the 3rd overall pick, especially when it went McDavid and Eichel in front of him, and then you had Marner behind him. He's nowhere near those guys. But he's become a nice player. Pierre-Luc Dubois, Ali Portas, Tom Wilson, still a good player for them. And the blue line is okay. I kind of like Rasmus Sandin as a player. They have Jacob Chikrin and John Carlson still hanging around there. So Washington, fine team. I think they're a team fighting for wildcard positioning. And I think they're a team that's going to see massive regression this year. But they could be 20 points worse, 111-91, and be fighting for a wild card spot at the end of it. That's about where I envision them, is a middling team that's on the bubble towards the end of the year. The team in the Metro that I could see elevating closer up to where Carolina is are the New Jersey Devils. The Devils fell apart at the end of last season. They got smoked by the Hurricanes in that first round playoff series. Although, they lost a double overtime game. They lost. No, I guess their series wasn't really as close. For some reason in my head, it was close, but I'm looking at the scores now and they only had the one score loss. So Devils fell apart at the end. But remember, Jack Hughes was out. He had that collision with Jack Eichel. He fell behind the net, out for the year. Their best player, their number 1 center. And without him, not nearly as good. 33, 24, and 6 with Jack Hughes in the lineup for the New Jersey Devils. 10, 13, and 2 without him after he goes out. That does include the playoffs. So Hughes coming back, big get for them. And I think they are the second best team in that division going in. I would bet they're above where the Sabres would be fighting for if, again, all this is predicated on the Sabres having a good year battling for wildcard positioning. Even if they're doing that, I still probably think the Devils are above that, but I wouldn't guarantee that. And we'll go to some of the offseason things they did in a moment. But just to round out these other teams from last season. The Blue Jackets, again, did a very different reason than the Ovechkin adrenaline shot. I think Columbus was playing their hearts out for Johnny Gaudreau last season. I do not attribute all of that, though, to Columbus last year. I think they were sneaky okay. I am starting to like some of their young players that they have coming through the lineup now. And I could see them building off what they did last year. They were probably a little lucky to get to being an 89-point team. So I think I could see them being an 89-point team again, but maybe it feels a little bit more real, if that makes sense. Marchenko and Fantilli, and they add and Cole Sillinger is a player that I like a lot. Zach Werenski's one of the best defensemen in hockey, and who's the veteran they added? Charlie Coyle. Then the bottom six is a nice little add for them. I like Columbus to be, I would not pick them to make the playoffs, but I think they're better than one of these worst teams in the league. I picked them above Philly, Pittsburgh, and at the very bottom. Yeah, Philly and Pittsburgh. Those are the only two. I would pick them against the Islanders too, but I'll get to them in a second. The other teams in the Metro, what they were last year, the Rangers, really bad year. Really bad year. A lot of drama, right? Chris Drury on the hot seat, trade stuff. They lose Keandre Miller after an offer sheet threat by Carolina, and they end up trading him away. The Rangers last year were not getting as great of goaltending maybe as they typically would expect from Igor Shesterkin, and they might be a bounce back candidate for a lot of people because 85 points last season. But what I saw was Chris Kreider was old, past his prime, still a joke. He made that Team USA team. He's gone now anyway. Vinny Trocheck, not the player that he once was. JT Miller is an older player. They brought him in from Vancouver. It's just a lot of age with New York. And everybody that whether that is Miller or whether that is Mika Zibanejad or Trocheck or even Artemi Panarin, maybe like all of those guys at the top of their lineup, I would expect you've seen their best seasons already. And that to me says arrow pointing down for the New York Rangers. Adam Fox, I don't know what's going on with him. He went from like the best defenseman in the world to kind of having an off year. So we'll see what he is. They're probably going to play Vlad Gavrikov, who was a player I liked for the Sabres, to go with Fox. See what that does for them. But last year, the Rangers, to me, not really a hot item. So when we come back on the Islanders and then some of these other teams or some of these other moves these teams have made, and then we'll have a mailbag edition coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Sabres is presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NFL season is almost here, and FanDuel is making sure that you're ready for a kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the entire app. And especially right now, you get your future bets in before you get to the start of the season. Next Thursday, again, is the first game. I have a little extra juice. And I like those because you have something to root for all season long. You have to keep going in and out and making different bets. If you like just one and you want to watch it ride, futures bets, now's the time. You also can use the app to track your fantasy lineups and stats throughout the NFL scoreboard throughout the entire year. So, ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now. Visit FanDuel.com. Get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet today. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, rolling through the Metro division and went through what everyone really was last year. The Islanders, the one team we haven't got to yet. I want to spend just an extra minute with what the Islanders were last year and what's going to happen with them, because I think they had an interesting little offseason. They finally were the team last year that I've been waiting for them to be for years, which is not that good. Mid, below average, 82-point team. It's always crazy to me when they are battling for playoff positioning. They had a totally New York Islanders-y record last year also, 35, 35, and 12. They just play to play close games. If you're a soccer fan, maybe you'll like this as a comparable. They're Everton. They live to be tied 1-1 with the best teams in the league. That's what they live for. Nothing exciting about them. They do move on from Lou Lamoriello, so maybe we're going to see a different direction from the New York Islanders. But in terms of what they were last year, it's the same old New York Islanders. But there is a chance they could be a little bit different going forward. So as we go through some of the biggest offseason moves that we saw in the Metro, already mentioned the Nikolai Ehlers signing in Carolina, but these teams that are more competing with the Buffalo Sabres. The Islanders, they add in the offseason. Jonathan Drouin, a little bit of offensive punch at the top of the lineup. Ethan Bear on the blue line. David Rittich in goal. They lose Hudson Fashion, Mike Riley in the blue line. They trade away Noah Dobson to Montreal in a big deal where they got first-round picks, and they used those first-round picks. Of course, the guy coming in to replace Noah Dobson, expected to be in the NHL lineup right out of the get-go, that's Matthew Schaefer, the first overall pick. I like that for them long-term. Is Matthew Schaefer going to be better than Noah Dobson in year one? They probably would take him being as good. And that's where I sit. For this year, love that they got Schaefer, better for their future. For the immediate future, it's probably a wash. Schaefer in and Dobson out. And that's even giving Schaefer, I think, a lot of credit to say that would be a wash. But no, Matthew Barzal staying healthy. He missed a bunch of games again. That's obviously, to me, the biggest key for the Islanders going in. Other offseason moves from the Devils. Connor Brown in from the Edmonton Oilers. Evgeny Dadonov in up front. They lose Eric Halla. They lose Thomas Tatar. Like kind of minor ins and outs. Devils basically the same team. Moving on to the Rangers. I mentioned Vlad Gavrikov coming in. Going out, Keandre Miller and Chris Kreider. I don't think they were losing much in Chris Kreider, way past his prime. They kind of, I think, fleeced the Ducks, getting anything for him and getting that salary off their books. It didn't feel like they wanted to lose Keandre Miller in the way that they did. I think they probably wanted to trade him, but in that way where Carolina's going, hey, we're going to offer sheet him. You better trade him here. And that is eventually what the Rangers ended up getting bullied into. I think Chris Drury could very well be looking at his final season as Rangers GM. I do not believe the Rangers are going to have a big bounce back. I think they will be fighting for playoff positioning, but I would kind of like Columbus project that they miss by at least a little bit. The Philadelphia Flyers at the bottom, mentioned earlier, Trevor Zegras, the only real big name to mention that comes in. And the Capitals, very quiet offseason, nothing really going on. So if I look right now at the way the Metro sets up, the way I would predict it goes, Carolina at the top, New Jersey in second. And for that third spot, just by default, I don't really love any of these teams for that third spot. I think I would go with the Capitals, but I could see it being Columbus as well. And I guess I could see it being the Rangers too, but I'd pick Washington. I do think we're reaching a time where you're going to see more and more the Atlantic dominate the Metro. And that already has been the case in the playoffs. I mean, if you look at who has represented, the Eastern Conference in the Stanley Cup Finals, a little of this is cheating because it's only two teams. But, I mean, that's been a lot of the Metro, right? Like a couple of elite teams that have been dominating all along the way. 6 years in a row, we've had a team from the Atlantic represent, and it's been from the state of Florida, which is the Panthers and the Lightning, just rocking everybody that they see from the Metro. And the last time a Metro team has actually made the Stanley Cup final, I mean, really, you've got Panthers 3 years in a row, the Lightning 3 years in a row, Montreal even in there, because remember, Montreal was, in the Canadian division for 1 year, so that's even funny. And before that, Boston, Washington. You got to go back 7 years to find a team out of the Metro winning the East and going to the Stanley Cup final. 7 years since that has been the case. And I don't expect this year to be any different. I don't think they'll have success when they get to the playoffs. I think on paper in the regular season, I will predict 5 Atlantic Division teams in the playoffs and 3 Metro Division teams in the playoffs. Nobody got significantly better other than Carolina, and they were already at the top, in my opinion. All right, when we come back, a couple of mailbag questions on the arena, on the roster, and some other things as we start getting closer and closer to the regular season. When we come back here on Locked On Sabres. Today's episode of the Locked On Sabres podcast is presented by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments, and then you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Sneaky Joe DiBiase back here for a mailbag edition here on Locked On Sabres. We want to remind you we've got a survey. We'd love to hear from you. Locked On's put together a survey to learn more about our listeners. It's your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, answer some questions about our advertising as well. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey is entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Takes 2 seconds. That's again, lockedonpodcast.com/survey. And you can also find the link in the show notes. So thanks for helping us out there. All right. Back to business at hand here. So we are about a month away, little less than a month away from the preseason, and then a couple of weeks later, the start of the regular season, which means we're even closer to training camp and even closer to the Prospects Challenge mailbag. What do the people want to know today? And one is about the opener. Good question. I wonder what they'll do. The question from a texter, do you think the Sabres might skip the front office introductions for the home opener? If I had to guess, the loudest the building will be all season, it'd be booing Adams at the opener. This is a very good question. I don't really know what they're going to do because either way, it's going to be pretty clear. Like, if they don't do it, everyone's going to know they're afraid of it. And, you know, they should know that. They should expect that. They should be afraid of it. Every year they've done it, and more recently it's been louder with the boos. So if they don't do it, everyone's going to know, and everyone's going to criticize them for that. I'll say it here. Clip this. Like, if in 2 months I say something different, I want people to call me out on this, because I'll tell you what I would do if I were them. It is, you skip it. You just skip it. Sure, whatever. Eat it. Eat the, we were afraid of it, or we're chickens, we don't want to put them out in front of the fans to hear. Take all of that in stride. Expect that it's going to come, and just don't have the building be booing as loud as humanly possible on the first night of the year. Skip it. Don't put Adams out in front of everybody. Don't even put him on the bench. Leave the front office upstairs. That's what I would do if I were the Sabres in this one, because I think it would be more embarrassing to have the clip live forever of you getting just loudly booed when we start the year. So that's what I would do if I were them, and I wouldn't care what people would say about it. But I don't know what they'll do. I think they very well could go out in front of people and have that as one of the intros right after they would go to Lindy Ruff. One texter asks if this is Jack Quinn's last chance with this organization. He's got a multi-year contract here, just a couple of years. His last chance, I mean, probably. If he's really bad, then they probably gets the boot after this season. The standard for him just to come back for another year isn't score 25 goals, 30 goals. If he's just helpful in any way, maybe he scores 19 goals and a bunch of them are on the power play and he helps resurge their power play a little bit, that's enough for him to come back again. So most things that could happen, I think, will result in him being back next year. But it's possible that he could be so bad. If he scores 10 goals, 12 goals, and it looks like he's a healthy scratch consideration again, then maybe they dump him for like a 4th-round pick after the year. And I think that'll be warranted if that happens. What happens if they don't make it? Every time everyone requests a trade and gets fired, is it Armageddon if we don't make it this year? And this is something that I'll want to talk about more next month as we get to the buildup of the year more so, is what's on the line this year for Rasmus Dahlin and Tage Thompson in their willingness to keep going. And it's all speculation other than, I have to believe that maybe he did not ask out from Kevyn Adams at the trade deadline, but there was a meeting. There was a meeting between Rasmus Dahlin and Kevyn Adams at the trade deadline. And you can't tell me that Dahlin wasn't asking questions about the future because he's like, let's go. I'm not sitting around here forever. I want to win here, but come on, let's do it. That to me is my guess of what Dahlin's attitude was. But what that means is eventually it turns to, all right, this just isn't happening. Like, this ain't happening. You're not going to get this done. And I'm 20, whatever now, 26, maybe he'll be at the time. Like, I'm done. That day comes eventually. Now, again, it's speculation. It's hard. You can't know. It could be after 1 more year. It could be after 4 more years. I don't know what his tolerance level is for all of this. But every year that passes, it's going to feel like it's more and more pressure to win, to make sure you don't have another Armageddon. And what is Armageddon? That's all your good players want out. And you're starting over again with a fan base that's already below 10,000 for season tickets, with a 6-year GM, with an ownership group that nobody has any faith in, with a young team that nobody has seen enough of, that like not enough of the guys have stepped up. Just where do you go? And you're not, I'll stop there. We have more of this to come in September. I don't need to go on a 10-minute rant about why Dahlin and Thompson are going to want out if they lose this year. But it's a thought I have about them every day, that they got to get rolling or it's going to happen again. Eichel and Reinhart wanted out. It's going to happen again with Dahlin and Thompson. We just don't know when. What would it take for Michael Pekka here as an assistant coach? That ship's already sailed. I believe he's in Chicago. So I would love to have Michael Pekka here, but he's been getting other opportunities, and the Sabres, I don't know how they dropped the ball in that one, but he just hasn't been here. He wasn't Rochester, but let him get away. What else? Given what we are seeing happening with the Sabres, is there really enough depth in the NHL to add 2 more expansion teams? Answer, no, there is not. I do not believe the NHL needs to be adding, you think, every team's got 12 forwards in a lineup and 6 defensemen and 2 goaltenders. So 20 players plus, a couple extras. Let's say 23 players. You want to add 46 more players to the National Hockey League. Where are those guys coming from? Guys that are currently in the AHL, guys that are currently playing in Europe, or young players that are in college. Do we really need to add 46 more individuals to the league? No. But they're going to, because the NHL doesn't get the massive TV contracts the NFL does, that the NBA does, that Major League Baseball even does. So what is one way that they make up for that difference in revenue? Expansion fees. And they're not, in my opinion, going to turn aside or turn down giant hundreds of millions of dollars in expansion fees that will be split amongst the owners. I believe they're going to go back to Atlanta, and they're going to go to Houston, which is, I think, what a lot of the reporting has been, that Atlanta for sure is one destination they're looking at. Bettman probably wants to go back to Arizona, but I don't know how likely that is. So maybe Houston is the one that ends up stepping up there. I think that's going to be it for mailbag questions today. One more maybe here. One more. Who is our true playmaker offensively? Who plays offense on this team right now? So not Dahlin, I guess. Honestly, I don't think we have one. The defense seems like they'll have to drive a lot of it. We have a bunch of shooters, at least. I think Benson may be that guy on the boards. In terms of a pure playmaker, yeah, like think back to 05-06. Playmakers. Briere, playmaker. Connolly, playmaker. Roy, playmaker. Like setup men. They had a bunch of those guys. This team, like, I wouldn't call Thompson that. He's good at it, but it's not his thing. He's more of a goal scorer. Tuck isn't necessarily an elite playmaker. Yeah, I don't know that they really have one. I mean, Middlestat was the guy for that. He was their best pass-first offensive player. That's really another way to put it for me. When you say playmaker, I think who's their best pass-first offensive player? And the answer to that question right now is probably Zach Benson. It really is. So I think you nailed it yourself that it's Benson. Because the next name I would probably want to bring up, it's not Josh Norris. He's a shooter. It's Peyton Krebs in theory, but that has never happened. It's never gotten rolling. Yeah, they don't have one. Final answer. They're all defensemen. It's Dahlin, it's Byram, it's Power. Yeah, they're all defensemen. So it's a need. It's a need. A true playmaking Connolly-like player in the top of the lineup. All right, I'll do it for us today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Next week, we'll start getting rolling on some more season topics, season preview topics for the team itself, as opposed to the opponents that we've been rolling through for the last couple of weeks here. So come back on Monday. We'll talk to you next week. Enjoy your weekend. And with all the college football, be sure to stay locked on. College football fans got Locked On and Fire TV present College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview. Drake Toll, Locked On Big 12, leads the charge alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley as well, and the Locked On local experts. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season, only on Fire TV. We'll talk to you next week here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.